Good evening. Welcome to the big story. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's big stories. It's gloves off for Vice President Sara Duterte, who took her feud with President Bongbong Marcos to another level. At one point, she threatens to exhume his father's remains and throw them out to sea.
House leader slammed the vice president, calling her statements a diversionary tactic meant to dodge questions about her use of the confidential funds. We'll be speaking with Congressman Chua about this later on in the program.
And Senator Bongo makes good on his promise and files a resolution to look into the drug war of his ex-boss and closest ally, former President Rodrigo Duterte.
Fridays are supposed to be quiet,
I know.
but if you had any doubt still that there's no love left between Vice President Sara Duterte and President Bongbong Marcos, well, today should put that to rest.
In a wide-ranging, sometimes rambling interview that went on for more than an hour and a half and was live-streamed, Vice President Sara Duterte lashed out repeatedly at Bongbong Marcos.
Let's backtrack on some of the more inflammatory things she said, and believe me, there were a lot. First off, the vice president. An hour and a half. Even more, longer, almost 2 hours.
Almost 2 hours, you're right.
So first off, the vice president said it was Senator Amy Marcos who convinced her to run for VP, which we already knew. But what was new today is that she admitted that Senator Amy asked her with the sole intent of beating former Vice President Leni Robredo. VP Sara also admitted that she felt used, or in Filipino, ginamit para manalo.
Sabi niya sa akin, pwede ka ba tumakbong Vice President? Sabi ko, bakit mo ako nire-request ngayon na tumakbong Vice President? And I'm happy that she was honest enough to say, kasi matatalo kami ni Leni kung hindi mo dalahin ang Bisaya. It was very straightforward. Now, it was all about winning, sinabi niya sa akin. And then she said na hindi kakayanin. Except for Manny Pacquiao, ang sinabi lang niya, nag-refuse si Senator Manny Pacquiao. So, of course, ginamit nila ako para manalo sila.
From 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, Duterte says she gives Marcos's performance as president only a 1. She also said the relationship between her and Bongbong had gotten toxic and that at one point she fantasized about cutting his head off.
Gusto ko tanggalin yung ulo niya ba? I realized toxic na yung relationship. Hindi ko kasalanan that we are on this road to hell. Hindi ko kasalanan kung hindi marunong. Kasi kung alam mo naman na may kakulangan ka, bibilisan mo yung gagawin mo para mag-catch up. Hindi ka naman uupo lang doon na parang, may kakulangan talaga ako. Nasabi ko kanina, 10 is the highest, 1 lang ang rating niya. Sabi ko na kanina, di ba, kung kayo gusto niyo, wala man akong problema.
And finally, Duterte was also asked about the hearings at the lower house investigating the alleged misuse of funds by her offices, DepEd before she resigned, and the OVP. She said that that was a fishing expedition for a possible impeachment case against her and that she herself has noted 5 grounds of impeachment against Bongbong.
The thing with the hearing is kung makikita mo, kahapon, hindi ko napanood, kaya hindi ako makomment, pero nakita ko sa transcript na kahit anong sabihin ng tao na nakaupo doon, ng resource person, kukontrahin siya noong nagtatanong. Kasi bakit ba? Kasi nga, sa simula, sinabi ko, gusto nila mag-impeachment. Hindi nila magawa kasi wala silang kaso for impeachment. So, ang ginagawa nila dyan, nagpi-fishing sila na nagpi-fishing, gahanap sila ng hanap. Alam nyo, before ako umupo, alam ko, impeachable officer ako. So, binasa ko yan. Ano ang impeachment? What are impeachable offenses? Ano ang pwedeng gawin mo na ma-impeach ka? Si BBM, sabihin ko sa inyo, may listahan ako ng 5 bagay na impeachable offense niya. Pero sa tingin niyo, papasa dyan sa House? Of course, hindi.
We have asked Malacanang for a response, but so far only got the statement from PCO Secretary Cesar Chavez. No statement from the OP or the Office of the President for now.
Well, over in the House, leaders did not take the Vice President's allegations sitting down. In a joint statement by Senior Deputy Speaker Aurelio Dong Gonzales Jr. and Majority Leader Manuel Jose Manix Dalipe, the two called on Duterte to stop diverting attention from the allegations of fund misuse. Gonzales said public funds are at stake here. Stop diverting the issue and address the controversy directly. Huwag puro iwas, the people deserve clear answers. Pati military ginamit mo, yet they were denied what was due to them. This needs to be explained. For his part, Dalipe said the Vice President is clearly desperate to deflect attention. He says, and I quote, "Instead of addressing these serious allegations, she is attacking others. The education system declined under her leadership and public funds were mishandled. She must take responsibility. It is time for Duterte to stop dodging and face the music." When Gonzales said, "Pati military ginamit mo, you even used the military," he was referring to something that came up at yesterday's hearing. The DepEd under VP Sara had claimed to use its confidential and intelligence funds last year for a training program called Youth Leadership Summit. They used certifications from the military to justify 15 million pesos worth of CIF spending, allegedly for paying off informers. But military officials later said it was the AFP and local government units who shouldered most of the expenses for the summit and that they received no funding for it from the Department of Education.
Clearly, we need to try to make sense of what just happened. And we have with us for our first guest tonight, live via Zoom, House Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability Chair, Congressman Chua. Good evening, Congressman. Thanks for being with us.
Good evening, ladies, and thanks for having me tonight.
Well, I see you're still in your office. It's been a crazy day, huh? Kong, let's try to dissect all the what happened today and also yesterday. Starting off with Vice President Sara Duterte, she in her press conference today, she repeated something that she had said before, which is that the House hearings are a fishing expedition meant to try to impeach her. She says it's a well-funded and coordinated political attack to cripple her chances for 2028. Could I have your reaction, please?
Well, basically, let me refresh how this investigation started. Basically, it all started during the committee hearing on the Committee on Appropriation. So at that time, they were asking if what happened to the intelligence fund. So that was the reason why it emanated, because we were all surprised how she spent the 125 million confidential fund in just 11 days. So, but at that time, during the committee hearing, the members did not hear any justifiable answer from the Vice President. That is the reason why it became the subject of this investigation.
So, in short, you're saying you're not on a fishing expedition to try to impeach her?
Yeah, definitely. And besides, we have an oversight function. We have to be reminded that the main purpose of this investigation is in aid of legislation. Ito pong pinag-uusapan po natin is about public fund. Congress, we have the power of the purse. So the way we see it, it was use or misuse. Medyo the amount is not, I would say, the amount involved in this issue is quite shocking.
Alright. Representative Joel, can I just ask, ano po bang legislation ang tinitignan niyong amyendahan or i-file? Because yun yung isang reason no, that the OVP used as to why they're not attending the hearings. They were like, they said na there's no attachment of a proposed bill. So can you tell us, just for everyone's benefit?
She says
Yeah.
there's no clear legislative
Legislation, yeah.
objectives daw.
What can you say to that?
Well, during the course of the investigation, it is very clear no, na not all departments or agencies should have this confidential fund. So the way we see it, we have to limit those agencies or departments who should be given or be allocated confidential fund. Kasi kung lahat na lang po ng departamento ay bibigyan po natin, parang medyo, the way we see it, parang hindi naman nila kailangan at nagagamit lamang po to sa mga hindi naman dapat. Because confidential fund should be used sa pag-gather po ng information or intelligence. Ano po ang ginagamit ng OVP dito at saka ng DepEd?
That's right, but we're talking about the 2025 budget, right? Na wala naman po ng confidential funds. I think the issues being tackled are from 2022, and in fact, some of those confidential funds were transmitted by the OP to the OVP. So, kasi parang, it also would seem na as per VP Sara's press con, na meron din po siyang point.
Ano mo bibigyan ng budget ang 2025? Siyempre, titignan mo yung mga past spending niya. Diba? So, how can we award or how can we give the Office of the Vice President this so and so amount kung nakita naman namin yung past spending niya, hindi naman niya nagagamit sa tama yung pondo.
Kahit
So,
wala
ano,
na...
ano po yung magiging basis natin?
So you're talking about her normal budget, hindi yung confidential fund, since that is already moot and wala na siyang confidential fund. She gave that up.
Well, basically, kaya naman po na ungkat dito yung confidential fund because it used to be part of her regular budget. Inilagay po yung confidential fund doon po sa kanyang budget. But unfortunately, nung nagkaroon po at pumutok na nga po itong issue about the 125 million where she spent it in just 11 days, doon lang naman ito natanggal. Kung titingnan po natin yung history ng kanyang budget at makikita rin natin yung regular fund niya, maraming din po doon na mga pondo na ibinigay sa kanya na we believe na po pwede namang ilagay po sa ibang ahensya. Kaya yun po. Kasi how can you give her the funding na in the first place, yung mga previous spending naman niya, hindi niya nagagamit ng tama. Ano po magiging basis namin?
Congressman, are you also looking into how these confidential funds are audited? Because it seems ridiculous to me that they're able to report how much is spent, but as mentioned in the hearing, tinanong po yan ni Congressman Acop, that COA has no way of validating whether the confidential funds where they went is reasonable and true. Like for example, yung po sa safe house na pinagastusan daw for 11 days worth 16 million pesos for 34 safe houses, walang paraan ang COA para i-validate kung talagang napunta at kanino at sino po yung owner. I mean, how do we put belts around how these confidential funds are used? Are you also looking into that?
Definitely. During the committee hearing, inamin naman po ng COA na they need to revisit the joint circular 2015. Ito nga po yung paggamit nitong confidential fund because as we see it, medyo parang napakaluwag ng batas in fact, by mere issuance of acknowledgement receipt na kahit naman sa kanto yata ng recto na bibili natin yung acknowledgement receipt or pwede naman gumawa ka na lang ng sarili mong acknowledgement receipt, madi-disburse mo na. And we are talking here not of a small amount of money medyo ang laki po ng pera na pinag-uusapan po dito, 125 million in just one quarter. And we are talking here of four different quarters. Last quarter of 2022 and the first 3 quarters of 2023.
So just to get back to Gretchen's
Wait,
question,
let me just call up the graphic on that. We have that graphic showing that 16 million pesos were spent across the 4 quarters. Go ahead, Shawn.
So going back to Gretchen's question actually, meron po ba kayong tinitignan na bill na ifa-file to better audit the funds? And if so, as early as now, what are the proponents of that bill that you're looking at?
Well, during the committee hearing, inamin naman ng COA na they need to revisit the joint circular. No? With respect to the bill, we will have to talk about it, but the way I see it, mas mabilis eh. Yung immediate concern dito, yung joint circular, kailangan mapalitan na to, ma-revise na agad ito. Dahil kung ganyan po yung mga... Could you imagine, doon po sa 16 million na rentals, meron po doon dalawang acknowledgement receipt worth 1 million each. So, in 11 days, saan ka po nagrenta ng 1 million? Wala man pong justification, ni walang specification. Hindi po namin alam kung saan po ito nirentahan. Ito po ba ay building? Gaano kalaki ito? Ilang araw? Kung makikita rin po ninyo doon sa dalawang 1 million na acknowledgement receipt, yung isa po dated December 26, yung isa naman po was dated December 28. So how did they spend it? In 4 days po ba yung 1 million? Or yung duration ng period na 11 days? So lahat po wala eh. Wala pong masasabi natin na specification or at least makalagay man lamang doon kung saan nagamit ito or kung saan ang location.
Congressman, just very, very curious, what do we have now in the law that allows COA to hold, for example, the OVP accountable for this, given the nature of confidential funds na hindi po na-audit ng thoroughly yung paggastos po niyan, can COA do anything at this point? Can they file cases if this is not explained well? Do we have anything on that in the law?
Well, I understand that may proseso po yan eh. First, they will issue AOM o Audit Observation Memo, and then magkakaroon po ng Notice of Disallowance and then Notice of Suspension. Tapos hanggang mga appealable pa po yan. But definitely, the fact na may AOM ka, ibig sabihin, meron ka ng misuse. So may hindi ka na ipaliwanag na sa paggamit mo. May mali na sa paggamit mo. But, one thing for sure, no, dito po sa mga nangyari, masyadong lax yung parameters nila. In fact, lahat po ng mga justification doon parang pro forma lang. Yung justification sa rentals, justification sa pagbili ng food and medicine, lahat po yan puro acknowledgement receipt lang. So makikita mo pare-parehas. Even the granting of awards or rewards, pare-parehas lang po. So paano po yun? Parang ano lang para ka na lang namigay ng pera, ng ganun-ganun na lang.
Yeah. Congressman, let me come back to the 16 million peso figure. We were listening to the whole hearing yesterday, and I know it was also raised the issue of bakit pare-pareho yung amount, right? Which was a bit odd, given that they were spent across different numbers of days. I didn't quite get a straight answer out of it. Do you understand it better now?
Yung pare-parehang amount, 16 million, like for example, in the 4th quarter of 2022, yun nga, tinatanong namin, 16 million in just 11 days, 16 million in 50. So, ano ba? Problema, wala pong specification until now eh.
So you don't know.
So, lahat puro puro acknowledgement receipt lang. So, that's why I think we need to revisit this law, this joint circular.
Okay, Congressman, I'm just curious, no, since nabanggit nyo na rin yung AOM as well as the notice of disallowance, it is my understanding that itong mga na-disburse na funds from the confidential funds in question are already subject to a notice of disallowance by the COA, and pretty much has been acknowledged also by the Office of the Vice President. According to the OVP, they're already coordinating with COA on the follow-up documentation and the liquidation, etc. Ang tanong ko, Congressman, why not just wait for that process to be finished para tapos na at kumpleto na talaga yung audit bago natin tignan kung ano ba talaga yung pwede magyari?
Because we have an oversight function. So, kung titignan natin to at nakita na namin mukhang may problema at hindi namin aaksyonan, how can we craft a law? So, ngayon pa lang, ito naman ang number one na purpose po na itong committee hearing is in aid of legislation. So, during the course of the committee hearing, nakita namin may problema na. So, we have to dig deeper, so that we will be able, at least for now, makita na po namin, magawa na po namin na aksyon. Otherwise, nakita naman po natin, it took COA 3 years bago maglabas ng notice of suspension or disallowance. Yun nga yung problema, yung proseso, sobrang tagal eh. So, isa pa po yan sa nakita namin. So, 2022, nilabas lang, during the 2023 budget hearing, Congresswoman Franz Castro was already asking COA for the audit observation memo or the audit report of the COA. So ang reply po nila, hindi pa po tapos. So it was only during this year, during the budget hearing of the Committee on Appropriation, it was only then that we were able to produce or obtain the audit report of COA. Kung hindi pa po ito sinampina, hindi pa po kami makakatanggap. So could you imagine kung aantayin pa po natin itong lahat, how long will it take? Paano po kami yung aming oversight function?
If disbursement and auditing are too lax when it comes to these confidential funds, then you do acknowledge that this opens up all confidential funds of all offices. It's not just the OVP that we're talking about here. That includes the Office of the President.
But you have to understand, magkaiba po kasi yung tinitignan po namin ngayon dito, yung mga agencies na hindi naman talaga dapat nabibigyan ng confidential fund. Just like yung DepEd, bakit po sila may confidential fund? The problem now is, we have no law na naglilimit kung ano lamang ang mga agencies or department na dapat na mayroong binibigyan ng confidential fund. If we will, like for example, DSWD, manghihingi rin po ito ng confidential fund, bibigyan din po natin. So this is a bad precedent. Otherwise, lahat po ng department, manghihingi na lamang po ng confidential fund. At makikita naman po natin, ano po ba ang purpose ng confidential fund? Intelligence gathering. So ano naman po yung i-gather ng social welfare? Ano naman po ang i-gather ng DepEd?
So kung on the part of Congress, naging usapan nyo na ba na okay, hindi na tayo mamimigay ng confidential funds sa kung kani-kanino lang?
Is that something you're looking to legislate? Restricting...
Ito po yung batas na ipapasa po namin. So ito nga po, yung number one purpose po natin is in aid of legislation. Ito po ginagawa po natin talaga para nakita na po natin yung butas during the committee hearing. Kaya po to mas pinapalawig natin ng pag-iimbestiga, pag-aaral, nang sa ganun makita natin yung mga loopholes sa mga batas natin. At ito na nga po yung loopholes na nakikita po natin. Like for example, Office of the Vice President, bakit po siya may confidential fund at nakita naman natin na hindi naman dapat. Unlike po yung mga, let's say, head of LGU, yung mga local chief executive, meron po silang, isa po sa mga functions na ginagampanan nila is yung peace and order. Yan, talaga kailangan nila ng mga ganyang confidential fund. Office of the President, AFP, PNP, Department of National Defense. So lahat po yan kailangan. But what about the other department?
Right.
So are we saying na kahit na hindi ka involved sa mga intelligence gathering, dapat basta pag nanghihingi lang, bibigyan?
Right.
Because we have no law na naglilimit po dito.
Sana po, bukod dun po sa disbursement po sa tamang departamento, pati yung auditing, maisama nyo dyan sa i-legislate nyo pong batas.
Yes, I agree with you po. Tama po kayo dyan.
Okay. We look forward to the outcome of that, and we'll certainly tune in to your next hearing next week. For now, we're going to have to leave that there. Thank you so much for your time. House Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability Chair, Congressman Chua. Senator Bongo has done it. He has officially filed a resolution seeking to investigate his ex-boss, former President Rodrigo Duterte's drug war. Go filed Senate Resolution number 1217 on October 17, seeking to conduct a probe in aid of legislation parallel to what the House of Representatives Quad Committee is doing. Go's resolution also requests that the Senate Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs, chaired by Senator Bato de la Rosa, lead the investigation. But Senator Risa Ontiveros, for one, says it has to be the Senate, or rather it has to be the entire Senate sitting as a committee of the whole who should do it. Another option is to have the Blue Ribbon Committee or the Justice Committee oversee the inquiry. The Senate has tried to investigate killings linked to the drug war in the past, but Ontiveros says this time will be different because there isn't a climate of fear anymore.
Nung inimbestiga namin yung mga EJ case noong panahon pa ni Duterte, in a way it was under duress, di ba? Kasi nag-iimbestiga kami sa isang sitting administration na very hostile sa minority o sa opposition. Hindi laging forthright yung mga ibang government resource persons na tinatanong namin noon. At syempre, with that climate of fear on the ground sa mga komunidad, lalo na yung pinakabinibiktima ng war on drugs, ay nandun din yung matinding social media attacks laban sa amin noon na nag-iimbestiga at laban pati sa mga biktima na naghahanap ng hustisya. So we would be, if and when the Senate and hopefully as a committee of the whole takes up, finally, this issue of the war on drugs and the EJ case, so we would be doing it na mas may kaluwagan ng sitwasyon as far as those factors are concerned.
Senator De La Rosa has said it's fine if another committee handles the hearing, but he does think there's a higher chance that Duterte would attend if he leads it. In his resolution, Go said, our top objective is to examine the conduct of the said campaign in order for us to identify possible legislation to address the drug menace in a more holistic manner.
Up next, more of the soundbites from Vice President Sara Duterte's press conference today, and we will dissect them with our resident political analysts Ronald Llamas and Richard Haydarian when the big story returns. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
Circling back to our top story tonight, the only top story today, I think, Vice President Sara Duterte's gloves-off media conference or sit-down that has already spawned numerous headlines, even overseas. So we now know that Senator Amy had co-opted VP Sara to be part of the UNA team with a singular goal of beating Leni Robredo in 2022. At today's press con, Sara was asked whether she thought the Marcos family had forgotten that it was her father, former President Rodrigo Duterte, who had allowed their father, the late dictator Ferdinand E. Marcos, to be buried at the Libigan ng mga bayani with full military honors, fulfilling the family's long-held wish. VP Sara said she did not know, but that she warned Amy that if the political attacks against her don't stop, she will exhume Marcos Sr.'s body and toss the remains out to sea.
Isang beses sinabihan ko talaga si Senator Amy. Sabi ko sa kanya, kung hindi kayo tumigil, huhukayin ko yung tatay ninyo. Itatapon ko siya sa West Philippine Sea. Sinabihan ko si Senator Amy. One of these days, pupunta ako dun, kukunin ko yung katawan ng tatay niyo. Tapon ko yan dun sa West Philippine Sea.
The Vice President was also asked what she thought of President Marcos saying last week that he always thought they were friends, but maybe he was just deceived.
For the love of God, presidente ka na. Importante pa ba yung nararamdaman mo? Di ba kapag presidente ka, hindi na importante yung pagod mo, yung luha mo. When you are president, importante dyan yung nararamdaman ng taong bayan. Yung bansa. Yun yung naisip ko when I heard it na parang talagang may panahon ka mag-isip about deception ng isang babae dyan. Ang dami mong oras.
On big days like today, we have to call in our One News heavyweight resident political experts, and I'm talking about our resident political pundit, Ronald Llamas, and geopolitical analyst and academic and vlogger, Richard Darian. Welcome back to The Big Story. Oh, Richard, naka-mute ka.
Self-proclaimed vlogger. Can you hear me now?
Okay, all right. We're glad to have you. It is a Friday.
Di na ako magsasalita, si Richard na lang.
Parang napapansin ko yung mga eksplosibong issue ay napupunta na sa Friday, ano?
Oo.
Parang
Kung hindi
may
Saturday or
suspense,
Sunday.
May konting hinga bago pwedeng i-pursue. Pero eto na nga, no? Unang-una, I mean, just taking a look at the timing of this press conference, ang sabi ni VP Sara kanina na I've promised the reporters a sit-down interview, and now I'm actually going here to explain to you several issues, and that was an hour long, more than an hour long. I mean, is this a diversionary tactic? And what is the Vice President trying to do here? Napakaanghang ng mga salita niya, talagang may pangil sa Tagalog. Who would like to start off?
Ronald, you want to go first?
The Vice President never fails to amaze me. Pero this long press conference or interview brings my amazement to a new level. Kaya medyo naghahanap tayo ng logic sa kanyang mga sinabi. Baka hindi natin dapat gawin yon. Dapat ma-amaze na lang tayo. No? Siyempre, pinaliwanag niya yung medyo alam na natin. Yung dahilan niya, kung ano nangyari, bakit siya tumakbo, sino kumbinsi sa kanya. Although in-emphasize niya na halos naglumuhod sa kanya yung presidential sister para kumbinsin siyang mag-vice president. No? Halos nagmakaawa sa kanya para siya ay tumakbo. At meron siyang ginawang kondisyon na medyo alam na rin natin na hiningi niya yung defense portfolio. Kung ako naman yung presidente, ba't ko ibibigay yung defense portfolio sa aking unpredictable vice president na usually ay unhinged, no? Kaya itong interview na ito brings being unhinged again to a new level, no? Baka kung itong kanyang interview at saka press con ay nangyari 2 weeks later sa Halloween, baka mas understandable, no? Kaso medyo napaaga no, before Halloween, no, na huhukayin niya yung cadaver ni Ferdinand Marcos at itatapon sa West Philippine Sea. Medyo even for her ay medyo nakakagulat yung ganitong klaseng morbid statement. Of course, marami pa siyang sinabi. Ako ay medyo interested. Anong sagot ni Amy nung sinabi kay Amy yon, no? At ano yung layunin ni Manny Villar para warningan si Sara? Dahil yung mga Villar kasi bahagi ngayon ng administration no? At marami pa. Katulad ng 5 beses yata siya nag-BS, no? Nagmura dun sa press ko na yun. No?
I think more than
Kaya,
5.
It's really amazing. No?
Can I hazard an answer what I think Amy would say? I think
sige,
Amy would
Richard.
ask, kamusta yung jet ski ng tatay digong mo sa West Philippine Sea? So siguro habol na yung
No,
jet ski. ni
Richard,
Duterte.
hindi daw nag-reply. Hindi daw nag-reply.
Yeah, I think West Philippine Sea is where the Tatays end up. So I think that's definitely, I think it's really a combination of things. No, on one hand, I think this is about Sara Duterte once again being a poor copy of her father. This kind of a method in the madness, kind of saying, oh, sige, all chips are down. Gusto niya ako impeach. Let's go for it. So I think there's definitely that aspect, except she didn't pull it off good enough as usual, because she never had the spontaneity of her father, no? But I think there's also an element of she's feeling the pressure I think there's some people, including Senator Trillanes, openly questioning, let's just say, her mental acuity or stability at this point in time. I won't go that far, but I think she's feeling the pressure. A while ago with Congressman Chua, I mean, he couldn't make sense out of the numbers. I mean, there's not even plausible deniability. Sobrang, I don't know if I can say the word booking, na there are irregularities in her expenditures. I think now that all of that is coming out, she's really feeling the pressure. And you can see why Sara Duterte did not run for the presidency. She deep inside knew national politics is perhaps above her level. And now those vulnerabilities are definitely coming out.
You don't, Richard, let me stay with you for a sec. You don't think it worked? You don't think she pulled it off? I mean, like, there are a few things there that I imagine would really resonate with her base. For instance, the fact that she said she felt used. Alam naman natin lahat that before she slid down to the VP race, President Bongbong Marcos's numbers weren't that great. So yes, they could attribute the win to her, to the unit team, right? So I imagine some of those things that she said would have resonated. But you, on the whole, you don't think she pulled it off?
No, I
doubt it very much.
No?
Even with her base. No?
Talaga? Okay.
Pero
tingin ko,
Ronald,
yung base niya will be on the defensive. No? Pag kinakausap ng mga kapitbahay, ano ba nangyari dyan sa idol nyo? Ba't ganyan sumagot? Bakit ganyan yung mga sinasabi? Tingin ko, even with her base, mahihirapan silang i-defend yung kanilang idol, yung kanilang leader.
But what's the
No?
difference between the father
I
and
doubt
the daughter?
she was able to pull it off. Definitely.
And Ronald, this is a
Okay, go ahead, Richard. Sige, go.
shrinking base. No? So if you look at the surveys, there's a reason why not a single Duterte ran for the Senate, right? Few mga tatakbong bilang senador. Now, not even a single one of them is running for the Senate. So base shrinking, you cannot just sing to the convince and the choir. You have to play the mainstream game. And I think Sara is really failing to reach out to the rest of the electorate who have been alienated or are losing confidence in the Dutertes.
Okay, Ronald,
Yes.
the last time we spoke, hold on, I think Richard's breaking up. But Ronald, let me ask you, the last time we spoke to you at the breakup of the unit team, you said na... Okay, you said that Sara is going to be the fiscalizer. Would today be kind of an attempt at being the fiscalizer of the BBM administration?
That base.
Well, usually binabanggit natin, o katulad ng binanggit ni Richard kanina, a method in their madness. Halimbawa, nung tinawag niyang tambaluslos si Speaker, no? Halimbawa, nung sinabi niya na tatakbo yung 3 Duterte sa Senado, na malinaw naman hindi mangyayari. It was to change the narrative, no? It was to turn the tables doon sa kanyang mga kalaban, no? Katulad nung kanyang pagharap sa budget hearing sa Congress. Pero ngayon kasi dito sa kanyang ginawang interview, ang nakikita ko lamang, wala akong nakitang method eh. Ang nakita ko lamang ay madness. No? Kaya siguro kinokorek ko lang si Richard na wala akong
madness is the method.
In the madness.
Madness is the method. Yeah.
Before nakikita mo yan eh. Digong, sa brother, sa kanya. Ngayon, halos totally, there is no longer any method in the madness. No? Hindi ko naman sinasabi na siya ay mad, pero borderline.
Okay, wait. We have to go for a quick break, just very, very short. We'll circle back to our discussion when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're also watching Big Story here on One News. We continue our discussion with our resident political analysts, Ronald Llamas and Richard Haydarian. Richard, you got cut off earlier, but what were you saying before?
Nasabotage yata ako eh. Yeah, I was about to go to my punchline that maybe the madness is the method. But for me, the fundamental thing is, the Duterte's road to success back in the day was strategic innovation, right? Element of surprise. And I think they were able to harvest a lot of political capital from that. But look, from 2015 and now we're heading to 2025, I don't see much of new innovation. And I don't see also much of strategic learning. It seems that they're not learning anything new. They're still the same iPhone 1 that was hot back in the day, but it's not improving anymore. So I think that's the situation we're seeing right now. But I think the biggest issue here is hubris. I think this is where you say, they say the fish rots from the head. I mean, from the father alone, you could see the level of hubris that he cannot still accept that they're no longer the dominant political dynasty in the Philippines. In fact, I recently corrected an article I wrote. I said, this is the fight between the two most powerful dynasties. And then I suddenly realized, no, actually, I don't think Dutertes are the second most powerful. I think the Remullans are at least more powerful. They have 2 cabinet members, maybe the Villars. So I think the Dutertes are being kicked down the pecking order, but they cannot just psychologically accept that. They cannot really psychologically accept that. And that psychological block is really preventing them from making the strategic adjustments and recalibrations that they need in order to stay in this race. So you're right, they're singing to their base, but that base is already shrinking. I mean, you cannot be a national force kung hanggang Davao ka lang. You have to be, they're not even a force in Mindanao anymore, right? I mean, as Ronald pointed out, it's a different platform. And the idea is that when Duterte said Mindanao wants to separate, no one supported him in Mindanao. So now Duterte's base is so shrunken that he cannot even speak for Mindanao. Forget about being a national level dynasty of force.
I wonder what really got the irk of Vice President Sara
Hindi ko rin
Duterte
alam,
to hold
kung anong
this
multiverse.
to hold this press conference. Was it the comment of President Marcos that he felt deceived, or was he deceived? Parang doon ba siya sobrang nainis? Or is it because they feel they have nothing to lose now, given the parallel events, the Quadcom hearings, the threat of the ICC, also this Good Governance Committee in the House? I mean, which is it?
Gretchen, the handshake. Lenny and BBM saying we're in a reconciliation mode, right? Napansin nyo, yung meeting with Sara, there was no picture released. But the meeting between BBM and Lenny, very charming, very public, very demure, very mindful. So I think the Dutertes are realizing they're increasingly isolated and marginalized, right?
VP
If BBM
Sara,
can
though,
openly say reconciliation with the opposition, although of course Lenny had her own caveats and all. I mean, if you're Dutertes, you're right. I mean, you're really, really against the wall right now, and they're lashing out.
She did say multiple times, though, about deception, yung deception. Anong deception? She must have used that word also more than 5 times kanina. And then yesterday, of course, that House Good Governance Committee hearing. Or maybe it's all of the above.
Ronald?
Yes, doon nga sa question ni Gretchen, ang sagot ko doon, it's all, probably all of the above. Pero syempre, mas hurt siya doon sa statement ng presidente na usually very passive-aggressive, usually conflict-averse. Pero dito ay nag-spend ng time para sagutin siya.
Pero nauna na siya, Ronald eh. She said hindi naman kami friends. It was just for the elections, di ba?
Kaya nga.
First time
Pero
sila
nag-spend siya ng time
nag-get
doon sa
together, no?
interview para ipaliwanag na marami ba siyang oras? Ba't kinakailangan niyang pag-usapan yung kanya nararamdaman? No, et cetera. Tapos wag niyong kalimutan, during that interview, 3 beses niyang binanggit na hindi siya nagko-cocaine.
Oh, yes.
What was that? What was that for, no? Ibig sabihin talagang medyo galit siya, no? Ang natatawa lang ako, anong multiverse siya nandun nung sinabi niya na yung kanyang tatay ay hindi nanggigipit. Yung tatay niya ay hindi ginigipit, si Vice President Lenny, hindi tinanggal sa posisyon. Of course, tinanggal sa posisyon as drug czar pagkatapos i-appoint. At syempre, hindi daw ginigipit yung mga kaalyado ni Lenny. Yung 7 taon ni Laila de Lima sa kulungan na lahat ng mga testigo ay umatras. Yung ba hindi panggigipit? Yung more than 35,000 na namatay sa extrajudicial killings. Kung hindi panggigipit yun, hindi ko alam kung anong tawag doon. Genocide, katulad sa Gaza, saka sa Lebanon, no? Baka nga mas marami pang namatay kesa sa Gaza, no? Dito sa tokhang natin. So, hindi ko alam kung anong multiverse nakatira si Vice President para i-volunteer yung ganong idea na yung kanyang tatay ay hindi nanggigipit. Dapat iwas ka na ron You make yourself vulnerable O kaya amazed na amazed ako dun sa interview niya kahapon.
So now, gentlemen, what is your read on the relationship between Vice President Sara and Senator Amy? Because before today, we thought there was still some friendship there. But then apparently, VP Sara had threatened to exhume their father's remains and throw it out to the West Philippine Sea, which, as some people are pointing out, parang one of the first few mentions of the West Philippine Sea she's ever made. Yun pa,
right.
threat pa siya, right? So parang it's a bit extreme. So how are you reading the relationship between the two ladies now?
Regina, talagang laglagan na ito, no? Laglagan na. Pero very difficult yung position ni Amy dahil umalis siya sa administration slate. Apparently, para dumikit sa mga Duterte. At ito yung nakuha niya for leaving the administration slate. Sasabihin ko sana poetic pero that could be too harsh, no? Pero nasan siya ngayon? Saan siya pupulutin ngayon, no? Ganyan yung attitude ng kanyang BFF. Talagang,
But Ronald, this is not the first time, right? Remember si Baste also a few months ago implied na essentially Karen to si Amy, like anong pinagsasabi. Like, you know, this is not the first time that the Duterte have been shading
Richard,
her.
Pero si Basti kasi tsaka si Amy, hindi naman talaga sila close. No, they were never close. Si Sara at tsaka si Amy, kasama pa nagbabike yan, di ba? Mas close sila kaysa dun sa mga kapatid. No? Kaya hindi ko alam saan pupulutin ngayon si Amy sa ganitong klaseng kalagayan.
Yeah, but I think answering the question, if you look at it, si Amy Marcos has positioned herself kind of as the matriarch of the family, right? Of course, Imelda Marcos perhaps is perhaps not in an optimal position to speak. So remember, right after nanalo si BBM, it was Amy who was positioning herself na, move on na tayo, this is our chance. So with Sara saying this thing against the Marcos Sr., you rather expect Amy to say something as a defender of the entire clan, right? I think otherwise, it just cancel out all her posturing. Exactly, all her posturing. Yun nga eh. So I think Amy must be in a very tough spot. I think she has one of the most unenviable positions in Philippine politics right now as she heads into a very tricky and difficult elections. I mean, this could be an election whereby lots of big names could lose. And who knows, maybe even a Marcos could lose in the 2025 elections. As we speak.
Though, last week we did have Amy Marcos. At sabi na, tinanong namin kung kailan niya last.
Naalala niyo nung last Halloween? Nakasuot siya ng Wednesday attire.
Naalala ko yung Coachella outfit. Pero last week we had Amy Marcos. We asked her kung okay pa ba sila ni VP Sara and when was the last time they spoke. And she just said, okay naman kami and we just spoke recently. Though hindi ko kasi alam kailan nagyari yung group chat, yung West Philippine Sea and digging up the body of Marcos Sr. So far, as of last...
Pero Shawn, kahit mas later siya nangyari or earlier, the very fact na sinabi niya kahapon, puts Amy in a spot. Dahil kahapon niya sinabi.
Exactly.
So, lalong mapapasama si Amy kung hindi siya sumagot kung yan ay nangyari a month ago or 2 months ago, lalong malalagay sa spot si Amy. Kaya, medyo, whether yan ay sinabi last week or last month, hindi, sabi nga ni Richard, hindi enviable yung position ni Amy.
Do you think she's gonna reply? Or should she?
Well, sana. Kung hindi, mababaon siya ng husto rito. Baka si Manny Villar, hindi magsalita. Ano yung kanyang warning kay Sara? What was that for? Lalo na nasa administration slate yung kanyang anak, yung kanyang paboritong anak. So, maraming nalaglag dito si Sara Marami siya nilaglag dito sa na ito. Hindi ko alam kung may iwan pa siyang kaibigan.
Meron. Politics is the game of negation, of subtraction. Medyo they're reversing the wisdom of politics in the Philippines.
Richard, Ronald, I want to talk about this tweet. Richard, your tweet. Another topic which is over in the Senate. Sabi mo, Risa Ontiveros checkmates the whole team of Bato and Bongo by pushing for a whole of Senate investigation on EJ case under the Duterte administration. What is going to happen now that it is it confirmed that it will be a Senate as a whole hearing?
They're in recess.
May rules kasi, Gretchen May rules sa Senate na during the break, no? Hindi ka pwedeng magmoto proprio na magkaroon ng investigation. Kailangan hintayin mo matapos yung break at yung buong Senado ay tanungin mo tungkol doon sa investigation na yan. So merong technical aspect na hindi uubra yung ginawa ni Bongo or yung planong gawin ni Bato. Pero yung mas mahalaga dyan ay hindi naman technical eh. Yung mas mahalaga dyan ay delikadesa. Medyo iimbestigahan mo yung sarili mo. Medyo nakakahiya naman yon, no?
Come on, Rona. Delicadeza is not necessarily the strongest suit of some of our friends there.
Yes, ine-emphasize ko lang. Gusto ko lang ma-emphasize sa Big R. No? Gusto ko lang ma-emphasize yung delicadeza aspect.
As a concept.
Just to be wrong, the question was to me, but I don't mind you answering it because I was about to disown that tweet.
I'm sorry.
Because siya kilala, sinong nag-tweet yan. No. But I think honestly, I'd rather have Bato oversee the hearing and then see Duterte super complex. Diba? I want actually Bato to oversee the hearing and then Duterte to come and be so confident that he drops bombs. And like Duterte has that, like if he feels comfortable, he's gonna put all of them into trouble. So what we saw with Jonathan Morales, that whole Polvoron hearing, we may see that on steroids, if ever. So I don't mind Bato actually overseeing that hearing just for Duterte to show up. And
ang sabi kasi ni Bato tsaka ni Bongo, hindi daw dadalo si Duterte kung wala silang dalawa.
exactly.
Committee of the whole, nandun naman sila dapat.
Ay, mukhang marami tayong aabangan, ano?
Marami talaga kasi may part 2 pa, hindi pa tapos, no? Yung papresko ni VP
Netflix
Sara.
na to, Netflix.
Sabi niya after undas daw ay magpa-part 2 siya kasi hindi niya natapos yung kanya meron siyang parang outline na sinusundan.
Okay,
Ang
mag-weekend
daming
na tayo.
miniseries, Shawn, na pinagsama rito. Ang daming miniseries, no?
Correct.
Narcos, Game of Thrones, no? House of Cards, no?
Succession.
Griselda, no? Etc.
Wednesday.
Malalaos ang Netflix nito.
Nako.
Malalao.
Totoo, hindi ko na nga nagagamit yung account ko.
Well, that is it for our fix of politics and entertainment for this week of October. We head on over to the weekend. Maraming salamat for joining us on this Friday night. Political pundits Ronald Llamas and Richard Hirdarian. Maraming salamat. Before we go, some good news. Filipino conservationists Anne and Billy Dumaliang have been honored in Time Magazine's 2024 Next Generation Leaders list for their efforts in safeguarding the Masungi Reserve. The Dumaliang sisters were recognized as one of 10 influential individuals leading the way to a better future as they persist in battling illegal activities that endanger the protected site. Time said, and I quote, while the Philippines consistently ranks as the deadliest country in Asia for environmental defenders, the Dumaliangs and their more than 80 rangers haven't been deterred by physical or legal threats, whether from property developers, poachers, loggers, or the government. The Masungi Reserve in Baras Rizal was once a degraded area heavily impacted by deforestation and illegal activities in the late 1990s. For over 2 decades, efforts have been ongoing to rehabilitate the land. Time also took note of the fact that this year the DENR nullified the agreement that allowed Anne and Billy to reforest and conserve the area.
And just before we go, here's our big picture tonight. And no, that is not a Christmas village in the Swiss Alps. It is this year's Alpine-themed Christmas village in Baguio City. And yes, if you're wondering, there is definitely snow for that added winter holiday feels. The attraction is now open at the Baguio Country Club and it's open every day. So guys, pahinga muna tayo, Baguio this weekend.
Galing
Diba?
Outdoor ba yun?
Outdoor yon. Sa tapat ng gate ng Baguio Country Club, they usually have a setup there for kids.
Malamig ba talaga?
Yung snow, yun ang hindi ko sure
Sa
kung...
Snow World kasi, indoor, tapos talagang malamig. And pag tinawakan mo, ice talaga. Malamang ito.
I think they just para siyang foam,
Mga white.
foam party machine, you know that, yung mga parang sa rave, ganyan. So,
Malamig sa Baguio.
Malamig sa Baguio.
Meron na lang.
It's not us who need to go there. It's the people in government who are fighting. We need to lower down the temperature a little bit because it's getting a little too high.
I love how you link that to everything.
No,
Well, maybe they can go to
the
Snow
feud
World.
is out. I'm not. I mean, if you. I mean, there's just out of today's press conference, she's already generated headlines overseas, right? Overseas news outlets took note of the fact that our vice president is openly,
Saying
hitting,
all these
slamming,
things. Went on a tirade.
hosting tirades against the president.
And she
which
knew
does
that. She
not-
said, "Hoy, marami na
which
kayong
does not
material."
look good.
Actually, sobrang daming headlines makukuha sa press conference na yun. That's why
Correct.
some people are thinking that this is a diversionary tactic, right? Because the attention is now on all of her statements.
Because now
that
there's
were
more
very
stories
sharp.
to chase outside of the House
Yes.
hearings
Correct.
on the DepEd and OVP fund use.
Right, so we'll see what
Baguio.
next week brings. Baguio
Baguio.
muna tayo. Or Snow World.
Mag-weekend muna tayo, guys.
Weekend muna tayo kasi magiging mabigat ang next week, Tuesday.
Oy, teka lang,
Next
meron na
hearing.
bukas.
Quad ko.
Book launch ni Manny Mogato.
Oh,
Dito
yes,
sa
that's
Signal
right.
Experience Center. So,
Okay, so
sa
kita
mga
kits.
gusto pumunta, pwede kayong dumalo. Limited edition, 300 pieces lang.
Oh, naku, unahan na
yung
naman
libro.
to.
And
Kailangan
we
ko
will
na
be there.
message ko si Sir Mogs.
In-advertise mo pa. What about our copies?
Advanced copy, Sir Mogs. Kita-kita tomorrow, but for tonight and for the week, that's it for the big story.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night and a peaceful weekend.